The champagne flute slipped from Natasha's fingers, crystal exploding against marble as her phone's screen illuminated her worst nightmare. There he was, Rhett Butler, her husband of 7 years, kissing another woman in a flowing white dress, surrounded by cheering guests she didn't recognize. The Instagram post burned into her retinas. Just married my soulmate. Hashtag blessed life, hashtag forever love, hashtag new beginnings. Posted 3 hours ago. 3 hours while she'd been at home, cooking his favorite dinner, waiting for him to return from what he'd called another business trip. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel where we dive deep into stories that will grip your heart and refuse to let go. I'm so excited you're here with me today. Wherever you're watching from around the world, drop a comment of your city or country and let me know. I love to hear how far these stories have traveled. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button because trust me, you won't want to miss where this story takes us. Natasha's hands trembled as she scrolled through the photos. Him spinning his new bride on a dance floor. Him feeding her cake. Him sliding a ring onto her finger. A ring that looked suspiciously like the one he'd claimed was being cleaned for the past month. 7 years. 7 years of being the perfect wife to Rhett Butler, the charming real estate mogul who'd swept her off her feet when she was just a struggling graduate student. 7 years of supporting his dreams, hosting his business dinners, standing by his side at every charity gala and corporate event. 7 years of believing his promises about soon and when the time is right, and let's focus on my career first. The betrayal cut deeper than the lies. It was the planning, the calculated deception that must have taken months. While she'd been discussing vacation plans for their anniversary, he'd been planning a wedding with someone else. While she'd been researching fertility treatments, hoping to give him the children he claimed to want someday, he'd been promising forever to another woman. Natasha sank onto their Italian leather sofa, the one she'd saved for 2 years to surprise him with, and felt something inside her chest crack open. Not her heart. That would come later. This was something harder, something that had been sleeping beneath years of patient devotion. Her phone buzzed. A text from Rhett. Flight delayed again. Won't be home until Sunday. Miss you, babe. Sunday. Today was Friday. His wedding reception was scheduled for Saturday evening at the Grandview Manor. She could see the elegant venue tagged in every post. He'd be home Sunday, probably with luggage that smelled like another woman's perfume, and lies already prepared about his exhausting conference. Natasha stared at her reflection in the black phone screen. 32 years old, successful marketing executive, beautiful in a way that turned heads wherever she went. She'd dimmed her own light for 7 years, believing that loving him meant making herself smaller. No more. She stood up, stepping over the broken glass with newfound purpose. There was a reception tomorrow night, and she had exactly 26 hours to prepare for the most important entrance of her life. What Rhett didn't know, what no one knew, was that Natasha had been keeping a secret of her own. A secret that would make his betrayal look like a childish prank. A secret that would shift the entire balance of power and leave everyone in that reception hall questioning everything they thought they knew about Natasha Butler. The wronged wife was about to become something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something powerful. Something that would change the game forever. Natasha walked through their shared apartment. His apartment, she corrected herself bitterly, seeing everything with new eyes. The framed photo of them at last year's company Christmas party sat on the mantel, her smile bright and trusting. She'd worn the red dress he said he loved, had spent hours getting ready because he'd mentioned some important clients would be there. Now she wondered if his new wife had been at that party too. The apartment told the story of their relationship in painful detail. His golf clubs in the corner, the expensive set she'd bought him for his 30th birthday, working overtime for 3 months to afford them. His favorite scotch on the bar cart. His books, his art, his everything. Where were her things? Her grandmother's quilt was folded away in the closet. Her favorite coffee mug lived in the back of the cabinet. Even her shampoo had been relegated to the guest bathroom because he preferred the master shower uncluttered. When had she become a guest in her own relationship? Her phone rang, jolting her from the painful inventory. The name on the screen made her heart skip. Elena Mitchell. Tasha, honey, you sound terrible. What's wrong? Elena's warm voice filled the room as Natasha put the call on speaker. Elena Mitchell, her best friend since college, the sister she'd chosen. If anyone would understand, it would be Elena. The woman who'd built her own catering empire from nothing, who'd survived her own messy divorce and come out stronger. He married someone else, Elle. The words tumbled out along with tears she hadn't realized were falling. Rhett. He's been planning a whole wedding while I was. God, I'm such an idiot. What? Tasha, slow down. Start from the beginning. Natasha found herself on the bathroom floor, back against the tub, spilling everything. The Instagram photos, the lies, the ring he'd claimed was being cleaned. 7 years of making herself smaller, of believing his promises about someday. I supported his business when he had nothing, she whispered. I believed in him when no one else would. I put my own dreams on hold because he said we were building something together. And the whole time he was planning to replace you, Elena finished, her voice tight with fury. That bastard. Tasha, honey, listen to me. You're brilliant, you're successful, you're gorgeous, and you've been carrying dead weight for 7 years without realizing it. But what do I do now? Everyone's going to know. His whole family, our friends, people at work, they're all going to see those photos and know I was played for a fool. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Or, she said slowly, they're going to see what happens when someone underestimates Natasha Butler. Something in her friend's tone made Natasha sit up straighter. What do you mean? Remember in college when Professor Jenkins tried to steal credit for your marketing campaign? What did you do? Natasha almost smiled despite everything. I presented the real version to the department head and got him fired. Exactly. You didn't cry, you didn't beg, you didn't make a scene. You were strategic. You were smart. And you won. Elena's voice grew stronger. This is just another Professor Jenkins, honey. Except this time, you've got something he doesn't know about. Natasha frowned. What are you talking about? The contract, Tasha. The business contract you made him sign when you invested in his company. The one that gives you 50% ownership if he commits fraud or breach of trust. The contract. Natasha had almost forgotten about it. A document her lawyer had insisted on when she'd liquidated her savings and retirement account to help Red expand his real estate business 3 years ago. She'd felt guilty asking for it at the time, like she was doubting him. Now it felt like divine intervention. Elena, that contract was for business fraud, not personal. Honey, think about it. He used marital assets to court another woman. He's been living a double life, which means he's been lying to business partners too. And I guarantee you, if we dig deep enough, we'll find financial irregularities. Elena's voice carried the confidence of someone who'd learned to play hardball. But that's not even your biggest advantage. It's not. Tasha, you've been so focused on being the perfect wife that you forgot something important. You're Natasha Butler. You've got your own money, your own career, your own power. You just let him convince you to hide it under his shadow. Natasha closed her eyes, feeling something shift inside her chest. Elena was right. Somewhere along the way, she'd forgotten who she was before Rhett. The woman who'd graduated summa cum laude. The woman who'd landed her dream job at 30 and was already being courted by headhunters for executive positions. The woman who owned her own condo downtown. The one she'd been renting out because Rhett preferred his place. She wasn't just Rhett's discarded wife. She was Natasha Butler, and she'd been powerful long before she'd met him. What are you thinking? Elena asked softly. Natasha stood up, catching sight of herself in the bathroom mirror. Her eyes looked different, sharper, more focused. I'm thinking it's time to remind everyone who I am. Starting with tomorrow night. Tomorrow night? The reception. I'm going. Elena sucked in a breath. Tasha, are you sure? That could backfire spectacularly. Or it could be exactly what I need. Natasha's voice grew stronger with each word. He wants to humiliate me? Fine. But he chose the wrong woman to underestimate. The secret she'd been keeping wasn't just about the business contract, though that would certainly be useful. No, her real secret was bigger than money, bigger than revenge. It was about the life she'd been building in the shadows, the one even Elena didn't fully know about yet. The life that was about to change everything. Saturday morning arrived with deceptive sunshine streaming through the bedroom windows. Natasha had barely slept, but she felt more awake than she had in years. Her phone showed 17 missed calls from unknown numbers, probably reporters who'd somehow gotten wind of the story. Social media moved fast, and a prominent businessman's secret wedding was exactly the kind of drama that went viral. She ignored them all and focused on her plan. First stop, her downtown condo. Walking into the space she'd been renting out for 3 years felt like coming home after a long, exhausting trip. Clean lines, modern furniture, her grandmother's artwork on the walls. Everything Rhett had called too feminine for their shared space. Her tenant, Charlotte Webb, was a young nurse who'd become more friend than renter over the years. Charlotte answered the door in scrubs, coffee cup in hand, eyes widening when she saw Natasha's face. "Oh honey, what happened?" Charlotte immediately ushered her inside. "You look like someone died." "My marriage," Natasha said simply. "Charlotte, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." They sat on the couch, Natasha's couch in Natasha's space, and she explained everything. Charlotte listened without interruption, her expression shifting from shock to fury to something that looked suspiciously like admiration. "So you're really going to show up at his reception tonight?" Charlotte asked when Natasha finished. "I am. But I need to look incredible doing it. Like, stop traffic incredible." Charlotte grinned. "I know exactly who to call." 2 hours later, Natasha found herself in the chair of Carmen Rodriguez, the most sought-after stylist in the city. Carmen usually booked months in advance, but she'd made an exception after Charlotte called in a favor from their nursing school days. "Mija, when Charlotte told me what that pendejo did to you, I cleared my entire afternoon," Carmen said, running her fingers through Natasha's hair. "We're going to make you look so good that his new wife will wish she'd never been born." As Carmen worked, Natasha felt layers of doubt and insecurity falling away with each snip of the scissors. She'd worn her hair the same way for 5 years, long and straight, the way Rhett preferred it. Now Carmen was creating something bold, something that screamed confidence. "Tell me about this big secret of yours," Carmen said, applying a face mask that smelled like heaven. "The one that's going to change everything." Natasha smiled, the expression feeling foreign after 24 hours of heartbreak. "Let's just say that while Rhett was planning his wedding, I was planning my future. And my future is a lot bigger than he ever imagined." The truth was, 6 months ago, she'd been approached by Harrison Sterling, the CEO of Sterling & Associates, one of the most prestigious marketing firms in the country. He'd offered her a position as creative director, a dream job that would triple her salary and put her in charge of campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. She'd turned it down. For Rhett. Because he'd said her current job's schedule worked better for their future family plans. Because he'd worried that such a high-profile position might overshadow his own business. Because she believed that love meant making sacrifices. Yesterday, she'd called Harrison back. "The position is still available," he'd said, sounding pleased. "When can you start?" "Monday," she'd replied, surprising herself with her decisiveness. "Perfect. There's just one thing, Natasha. The role comes with something I didn't mention before. A significant signing bonus and stock options. We're talking about a package worth over $2 million. $2 million. More money than Rhett's business had made in its best year. More money than she'd ever imagined earning. And it was hers, based on her own talent and reputation. By 6 p.m., Carmen had worked her magic. Natasha barely recognized herself in the mirror. Her hair was shorter, with layers that framed her face and brought out her cheekbones. Her makeup was flawless but natural, making her skin glow like she was lit from within. And the dress. The dress was perfection. Black silk that hugged every curve, with a neckline that was sophisticated rather than provocative. Elegant diamond earrings, her own, not gifts from Rhett, caught the light as she moved. She looked like power personified. "Damn, girl," Charlotte whistled when Natasha emerged from the bedroom. "If I weren't straight and you weren't my landlord, I'd propose right now." Natasha laughed. Actually laughed, for the first time in 24 hours. "How do I look?" "Like a woman who's about to remind everyone in that room what they're dealing with," Carmen said, packing up her supplies. "Go get them, Mija. And make sure someone takes pictures. I want to see their faces." At 7:30 p.m., a black limousine pulled up outside Natasha's building. She debated the limo. It felt dramatic, maybe too much. But Elena had been right. If she was going to make an entrance, she might as well make it memorable. As the car glided through the city toward Grandview Manor, Natasha felt her phone buzz with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news. "You deserve better. Jay." Her heart skipped a beat before she forced herself to stay focused. Tonight wasn't about him, not yet. Tonight was about reclaiming her power and showing Rhett, showing everyone, exactly who they were dealing with. The limousine slowed as they approached the manor. Through the tinted windows, she could see guests milling around outside, elegant and laughing, celebrating her husband's betrayal. "Ready, ma'am?" the driver asked. Natasha took a deep breath, checking her reflection one last time in her compact mirror. The woman staring back at her was a stranger, confident, mysterious, dangerous in the best possible way. "Ready." As the car door opened and she stepped onto the red carpet leading to the manor's entrance, conversations stopped. Heads turned. Someone dropped a champagne glass. Natasha Butler had arrived. The whispers started before Natasha had taken 3 steps toward the manor's entrance. She could feel eyes on her, hear fragments of conversations as guests recognized her. Is that? Oh my God, it's his first wife. What is she doing here? She looks incredible. The wedding reception was everything she'd expected. Over-the-top, elegant, expensive, designed to impress. White roses everywhere, crystal chandeliers, a string quartet playing softly in the corner. Rhett's taste, or rather, his need to show off his success. She spotted him immediately across the crowded ballroom, looking handsome in his black tuxedo, arm around a petite blonde in an elaborate white reception dress. His new wife was pretty in a conventional way. Exactly the type of woman who would never challenge him, never overshadow him, never ask difficult questions. Rhett saw her at the same moment she saw him. The color drained from his face so quickly she thought he might faint. His new wife followed his gaze, her smile faltering when she spotted Natasha. "Excuse me, are you on the guest list?" A nervous-looking wedding coordinator appeared at Natasha's elbow, tablet in hand. "I'm Natasha Butler," she said calmly, not taking her eyes off Rhett. "Rhett's wife." But the coordinator stammered, glancing between Natasha and the bride across the room. "First wife," Natasha clarified, finally looking at the woman. There seems to have been some confusion about the divorce timeline. It wasn't technically true. She'd never signed divorce papers because Rhett had never asked for them. But it was close enough to the truth to make the coordinator's eyes widen in panic. I should. Let me get the wedding planner." "No need." Natasha smiled graciously. "I'm not here to cause a scene. I just want to congratulate the happy couple." She moved through the crowd with purpose, accepting champagne from a passing waiter. Conversations stopped as she passed, then resumed in urgent whispers behind her. She could feel the energy in the room shifting, anticipation building like electricity before a storm. "Natasha." Rhett's voice was tight with barely controlled panic as she approached their table. Up close, she could see sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "Hello, Rhett." She turned to his new wife with a warm smile. "And you must be." "I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name in any of the news coverage." "Scarlett," the blonde said faintly. "Scarlett O'Hara." Of course it was. Natasha almost laughed at the irony. Rhett Butler marrying someone named Scarlett O'Hara. The universe did have a sense of humor. Scarlett, what a lovely name. And such a beautiful wedding. Though I have to ask. Natasha tilted her head innocently. Did Rhett mention he was still legally married to someone else? Scarlett's face went white. "What?" "Natasha, don't," Rhett warned, his voice low and dangerous. "Not here. Not tonight." "Oh, but Rhett, I think your guests deserve to know the truth, don't you? Especially your new wife." Natasha's voice carried just enough to be heard by nearby tables. "I mean, bigamy is illegal in most states." "You're divorced," Rhett said desperately. "We've been separated." "Separated, yes. Divorced?" Natasha pulled out her phone, scrolling through her legal documents app. "I don't seem to have any record of signing divorce papers. Do you have a copy of our decree, darling?" The silence at their table was deafening. Around them, other guests were straining to hear, phones discreetly recording what was clearly becoming the most dramatic wedding reception of the year. Scarlett looked between them, her perfect makeup starting to smudge as tears formed in her eyes. "Rhett, what is she talking about?" "It's complicated," he started, but Natasha cut him off. "It's actually quite simple. Rhett and I have been married for 7 years. We've been living together until this week. We share bank accounts, property, a business." She smiled at Scarlett's increasingly horrified expression. "I'm sorry, dear. It seems you're the other woman, not me." "That's enough." Rhett stood abruptly, grabbing Natasha's arm. "We need to talk. Privately." "Of course." Natasha didn't resist as he pulled her toward a quiet corner of the ballroom. But she made sure her voice carried as they walked. "Though I do hope Scarlett doesn't feel too embarrassed. These things happen when people don't do their due diligence." In the corner, away from most of the guests but still visible to anyone who cared to look, Rhett finally exploded. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed. "You're humiliating me in front of everyone I know." "I'm humiliating you?" Natasha's voice rose slightly. "Rhett, you married another woman while you were still married to me. You used our joint accounts to pay for this wedding. You've been lying to me for months, maybe years. And I'm the one humiliating you. You don't understand." Oh, I understand perfectly. You wanted to trade up. Get yourself a younger, more compliant model. Someone who won't challenge you or have opinions of her own. Natasha stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow felt more dangerous than shouting. What you didn't count on is that I'm not going away quietly. What do you want? Rhett's desperation was starting to show. Money? The apartment? I'll give you whatever you want, just please don't destroy this for me. Destroy what exactly? Your fairy tale built on lies? Natasha shook her head. Rhett, you destroyed this the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you. She could see Scarlett across the room, crying into a napkin while Rhett's mother, who had never liked Natasha, tried to comfort her. Other guests were openly staring now, phones out, probably live-tweeting the drama. But here's what's really going to interest you, Natasha continued, watching his face carefully. I got a call yesterday, from Sterling and Associates. Rhett frowned. The marketing firm? What do they want with you? They offered me a position. Creative director. 7-figure salary, stock options, signing bonus. She paused, savoring the moment. I accepted. The blood drained from his face as the implications hit him. Natasha, you can't. What about my business? What about your business that I invested my life savings into? The one where I'm a 50% partner according to the contract you signed. Natasha smiled sweetly. Don't worry. I'm sure you can buy out my shares. Oh wait, with what money? She could see him doing the math in his head. Without her investment and her steady income, his company was barely profitable. Without her contacts and marketing expertise, it would struggle to grow. And now, with the scandal of his bigamous marriage about to explode across social media, he'd be lucky to keep his existing clients. You can't do this to me, he whispered. I'm not doing anything to you, Rhett. I'm finally doing something for me. She glanced back at the reception, where chaos was starting to ripple outward from their table. Enjoy your party. I have somewhere else to be. She was halfway to the exit when she heard someone call her name. Natasha! Wait! She turned to see James Franco pushing through the crowd toward her. James, successful architect, charming, handsome, and the reason she'd been questioning her marriage long before she'd discovered Rhett's betrayal. The man who'd sent her that text earlier. The man who represented the life she could have if she was brave enough to reach for it. James. Her voice was softer now, the armor she'd worn for Rhett's benefit slipping slightly. What are you doing here? Rhett's an old college buddy. I was invited. His eyes searched her face. Are you okay? I'm perfect, she said, and for the first time in years she meant it. Actually, I'm better than perfect. I'm free. Behind them, she could hear Rhett calling her name, his voice desperate and angry. But she didn't turn around. Instead, she took James's offered arm and walked with him toward the exit, toward the limousine waiting outside, toward whatever came next. The real surprise was yet to come. The limousine glided through the city streets, carrying Natasha and James away from the chaos she'd left behind. Inside the luxurious interior, she finally allowed herself to breathe, her composure cracking slightly as the adrenaline began to fade. That was. James shook his head, a mix of admiration and concern in his eyes. Natasha, that was incredible and terrifying at the same time. Which part? She asked, accepting the champagne he poured from the car's minibar. The part where I discovered my husband's bigamy, or the part where I publicly destroyed his life? The part where you stood up for yourself like the absolute queen you are. James's voice was warm, familiar in a way that made her chest tighten. Though I have to ask, what's this about Sterling and Associates? When did that happen? Natasha looked out the window at the city lights blurring past. 6 months ago, she'd been at a marketing conference when James had introduced her to Harrison Sterling. The chemistry had been immediate, professional at first, then something deeper. Harrison had offered her the job on the spot, and when she'd hesitated, he'd asked her to dinner to discuss it further. That dinner had changed everything. James, she said quietly, there's something I need to tell you. About Harrison Sterling. About the job offer. About us. He set down his champagne, giving her his full attention. I'm listening. When I met Harrison at that conference, it wasn't just about the job. She paused, choosing her words carefully. We connected. In a way I hadn't connected with anyone in years. Maybe ever. James nodded slowly. I could see it that night. The way you lit up when you talked to him. I'd never seen you like that before. I was married, James. I was committed to Rhett, to our life together. But Harrison saw something in me that Rhett never did. He saw my potential, my ambition, my dreams. She met James's eyes. We started talking. Just talking at first. About work, about life, about what we wanted from our careers. And then it became more. Not physical. I never cheated on Rhett, not the way he cheated on me. But emotionally. She trailed off, remembering late-night phone calls and text messages that made her heart race. I fell in love with Harrison Sterling. And he fell in love with me. The admission hung in the air between them. James was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. That's your secret, he said finally. Not just the job. It's him. It's more than that. Natasha's voice grew stronger. Harrison didn't just offer me a job, James. He offered me a partnership. In business and in life. Last month he proposed. James's eyebrows shot up. Proposed. I said yes. She pulled a simple, elegant engagement ring from her purse, sliding it onto her finger where it caught the light from the street lamps. We were going to announce it after I figured out how to leave Rhett. But then this whole wedding situation happened, and you realized you didn't need to figure anything out. Rhett made the choice for you. Exactly. Natasha smiled, feeling lighter than she had in months. Harrison's flying in tonight. He wanted to be here for moral support, but I told him I needed to handle Rhett on my own first. Where are you meeting him? Natasha checked her phone. The Ritz-Carlton. Penthouse suite. She looked at James with a mix of gratitude and apology. I know this is a lot to process. You've been such a good friend through all of this, and I hope. Natasha. James took her hands in his expression serious but kind. I've known you for 5 years. I've watched you dim your light for a man who never deserved you. If Harrison Sterling makes you shine the way you were meant to, then I'm happy for you. You deserve everything good in this world. Tears pricked her eyes, the first genuine tears she'd shed since discovering Rhett's betrayal. Not tears of hurt or anger, but of gratitude and relief. There's more, she said softly. The job offer, the engagement, it's all connected to something bigger. Harrison runs Sterling and Associates, but he's also launching something new. A foundation focused on empowering women entrepreneurs. He wants me to head it up. That's incredible. We're talking about $50 million in initial funding, James. $50 million to help women start businesses, scale their companies, break through barriers. Her voice grew passionate. Everything I learned supporting Rhett's business, every connection I made, every skill I developed, I can use all of it to help other women avoid the mistakes I made. The limousine slowed as they approached the Ritz-Carlton. Through the windows, Natasha could see photographers waiting outside. Word had already spread about the wedding reception drama, and someone had tracked down her location. One more thing, she said as they prepared to face the media circus. Harrison's company is going public next month. The IPO is expected to be worth over $1 billion. My stake in the company. She shrugged, almost embarrassed by the numbers. Let's just say I'll never have to worry about money again. James let out a low whistle. From struggling wife to billionaire entrepreneur in 24 hours. That's quite a transformation. I'm still the same person I always was, Natasha said firmly. I just finally remembered who that person is. As the car door opened and camera flashes began popping, Natasha felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Harrison Sterling himself stepping out of a second limousine that had pulled up behind theirs. He was everything Rhett wasn't, tall, distinguished, with silver threading through his dark hair and eyes that saw straight through to her soul. When he smiled at her, she felt the rest of the world fade away. Sorry I'm late, he said, pulling her into his arms right there in front of the photographers. Traffic was murder. You're right on time, she whispered against his ear. As he kissed her, really kissed her, the kind of kiss that made headlines and broke the internet, Natasha could hear her phone buzzing frantically with calls and texts. Probably Rhett, probably his family, probably reporters wanting statements. She ignored them all. Tomorrow, the world would wake up to a very different story than the one they'd expected. Not the story of a woman scorned, but the story of a woman who'd found her power and wasn't afraid to use it. Behind them, James was fielding questions from reporters, his voice carrying over the chaos. Ms. Butler is engaged to Harrison Sterling, CEO of Sterling and Associates. They'll be making a formal announcement about their business and personal partnership tomorrow morning. The flash of cameras was blinding, but Natasha had never seen more clearly. The penthouse suite at the Ritz-Carlton was a sanctuary above the chaos brewing in the city below. Natasha stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching social media explode across her phone screen. #RhettButlerScandal was trending worldwide, with photos and videos from the reception going viral by the minute. "You should see this," Harrison said from the couch, his laptop open to a live news feed. "They're calling it the wedding reception revenge of the century." Despite everything, Natasha laughed. "Is that what we're calling it? The media is having a field day. Your ex-husband's business partners are already distancing themselves. His biggest client just released a statement saying they're reviewing their relationship with his company." Before Natasha could respond, her phone rang. Elena's name flashed on the screen. "Tasha, please tell me you're somewhere safe." Elena's voice was tight with worry. "The news is everywhere, and Red is, well, he's not taking this well." "Define not well," Harrison said, moving closer so he could hear the conversation. "He's been calling everyone, mutual friends, your co-workers, his family. He's telling people that Natasha had a mental breakdown, that she's unstable, that she's fabricating the marriage issue for attention." Elena's voice grew angrier. "And Scarlett, his new wife, she's backing him up. They're claiming the marriage is legal because you two were emotionally divorced, even if not legally divorced." Natasha felt ice form in her stomach. "He's trying to discredit me. It gets worse. He's hired Thompson and Associates. You know, that ruthless law firm that specializes in destroying people's reputations. They're preparing to challenge the business contract you signed, claiming you coerced him into it. That's ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous. But Tasha, they have resources. And they're good at making lies look like truth, especially when it comes to powerful men versus women who dare to challenge them." Harrison's expression had grown dark as he listened. "What about the media coverage? Surely the evidence speaks for itself. The evidence is being spun. Rhett's team is pushing a narrative that Natasha is a gold digger who's angry about being replaced. They're saying she crashed the wedding to cause a scene and extort money from him." Elena's voice cracked slightly. "Some people are buying it, Tasha. Some of our mutual friends are actually taking his side." Natasha sank onto the couch, feeling the confidence she'd built over the past 24 hours begin to crumble. "Who?" "Rebecca from your old job. She posted on Facebook about how some women will do anything for money, and how there are always two sides to every story. And your cousin Michelle, she called your mom, Tasha. She told her that you were being vindictive and embarrassing the family." The betrayal cut deep. These were people she'd trusted, people she'd considered friends. Now they were questioning her integrity, her motives, her truth. "There's more," Elena continued reluctantly. "Thompson and Associates dug up some old information. That investment you made in Rhett's business 3 years ago? They're claiming it was a gift, not a business investment, because you didn't have independent legal representation at the time. But I did have. The lawyer you used was recommended by Rhett. They're arguing that creates a conflict of interest and invalidates the contract." Harrison stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "This is character assassination. Pure and simple. And it's working," Elena said quietly. "Tasha, honey, I hate to say this, but you need to prepare for a fight. A long, ugly, expensive fight. And there's no guarantee you'll win." After Elena hung up, the suite fell into heavy silence. Natasha stared at her engagement ring, the symbol of her new beginning that now felt fragile and uncertain. "Maybe I made a mistake," she whispered. "Maybe I should have handled this privately, gotten a divorce attorney, kept it quiet." "No." Harrison's voice was firm as he returned to her side. "You did nothing wrong. Rhett betrayed you, humiliated you, and committed what amounts to fraud. You have every right to defend yourself. But what if they destroy me in the process? What if the foundation never happens because my reputation is ruined? What if Sterling and Associates board decides I'm too much of a liability?" For the first time since she'd known him, Harrison looked uncertain. "Natasha, I won't lie to you. This kind of negative publicity can be damaging, especially for someone in your position. The foundation relies on public trust, and if Rhett's team succeeds in painting you as vindictive or unstable..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. She could see the doubt creeping into his eyes, the careful consideration of how this scandal might affect his own business interests. "You're having second thoughts," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "About us? Never. About the timing of our announcement, the foundation launch, the public aspects of our partnership." He ran a hand through his hair. "Maybe we need to step back, let things cool down, handle this more strategically." Natasha felt the walls closing in. Rhett was attacking her credibility, her friends were questioning her motives, and now even Harrison, the man who'd promised to stand by her, was suggesting they hide their relationship to protect his business interests. She stood up abruptly. walking to the window to hide the tears threatening to spill. Below, she could see reporters still camped outside the hotel, waiting for their next shot at the story. "I should go," she said quietly. "This was a mistake. All of it." "Natasha, that's not what I meant." "It's exactly what you meant." She turned to face him, and he took a step back at the hurt in her eyes. "When things get difficult, when standing by me becomes inconvenient for your business, you want me to disappear back into the shadows. That's not fair, isn't it? 24 hours ago, I was your brilliant fiancé, your business partner, your equal. Now that I come with baggage and scandal, I'm a liability to be managed." Her phone buzzed with another call from an unknown number. Then another. Then another. The vultures were circling, sensing weakness, ready to pick apart everything she'd built. For the first time since this nightmare began, Natasha felt truly alone. Things are looking dark for Natasha. Have you ever felt like the whole world was against you? Share your experiences in the comments. Sometimes we need to remember we're not alone in our struggles. Natasha stood in the hotel bathroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The confident woman who'd walked into Rhett's reception 6 hours ago looked back at her. But her eyes told a different story now. Behind the perfect makeup and designer dress was someone who felt small and defeated. Her phone rang for the 20th time in 10 minutes. This time it was her mother, Natasha Marie Butler. Her mother's voice was sharp with disapproval. "What in God's name is happening? Your cousin Michelle called, the neighbors are asking questions, and there are reporters calling the house." "Mama, I can explain." "Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've lost your mind. Making a scene at that man's wedding, talking to reporters about your private business, embarrassing yourself and this family on the internet." Each word felt like a slap. Her own mother, who should have been outraged on her behalf, was instead ashamed of her for fighting back. "He married another woman while he was still married to me," Natasha said quietly. "He used my money, our money, to pay for it. He made me look like a fool. And so you decided to make yourself look like a bigger fool by causing a scene?" Natasha, successful women handle these things privately. They get lawyers, they get divorced, they move on with dignity. "Like you did when Daddy cheated?" The silence on the other end was deafening. "That was different," her mother said finally, her voice smaller now. "How was it different? You stayed quiet, you kept his secrets, you let everyone think your marriage was perfect while he humiliated you behind closed doors. You taught me that a woman's job is to suffer in silence and smile for appearances." Natasha's voice grew stronger. "Well, I'm done suffering in silence, Mama. I'm done making myself small to make other people comfortable. Natasha, I love you, but I can't do this right now." She hung up before her mother could respond. Through the bathroom door, she could hear Harrison on the phone with someone, probably his board of directors, probably discussing damage control. The foundation, the IPO, the careful reputation he'd built over decades. She was jeopardizing all of it. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe she was being vindictive, selfish, destructive. A soft knock on the bathroom door interrupted her spiral of self-doubt. "Natasha, there's someone here to see you." She opened the door to find Harrison standing there with James Franco, both men looking serious but determined. "James? How did you?" "Harrison called me. We need to talk." James gestured toward the living area. "All of us." In the sitting room, James spread out a collection of documents and photographs on the coffee table. "I've been doing some digging since I left you two earlier, and what I found is going to change everything." Natasha sank into a chair, exhausted by the emotional roller coaster of the day. "James, I appreciate you trying to help, but..." "Rhett's been planning this for over a year," James interrupted, his voice hard with anger. "The wedding, the new wife, the divorce strategy, all of it." He pushed a photograph across the table. It showed Rhett and Scarlett together at a restaurant, clearly on a date. The timestamp showed it was from 14 months ago. "Where did you get this?" "Scarlett's social media, before she scrubbed it clean. She documented their entire relationship, Natasha. First date, anniversaries, meeting his parents, all while he was still very much married to you." More photos followed. Rhett and Scarlett at charity events Natasha remembered him attending for business. Rhett and Scarlett on vacation to places he'd told Natasha were work conferences. "It gets worse," James continued, pulling out bank statements. "He's been moving money out of your joint accounts for months, funneling it into accounts under his mother's name. The wedding, the honeymoon, even the engagement ring, all paid for with money that legally belonged to both of you." Natasha felt a spark of her old fire returning. How did you get bank records? James smiled grimly. I have a friend who works in forensic accounting. When I told her what was happening, she pulled some favors. Pro bono work for a good cause, she called it. There's more, Harrison said, his earlier uncertainty replaced by focused determination. I made some calls too. Thompson and Associates might be ruthless, but they're not the only game in town. I've retained Mackenzie, Walsh and Partners. They specialize in cases exactly like this one. Harrison, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Because James is right. This isn't about vindication anymore. This is about justice. He sat beside her on the couch, taking her hands. And because I was wrong earlier. When things get tough, real partners don't step back, they step up. James pulled out his phone, showing them a recording app. There's one more thing. Charlotte, your tenant? She called me an hour ago. Apparently, Rhett showed up at your condo tonight, drunk and angry. He tried to force his way in, demanding to know where you were. Charlotte recorded the whole thing. He pressed play. Rhett's voice filled the room, slurred and furious. She thinks she can destroy me? I made her. I gave her everything. Without me, she's nothing. Just another bitter black woman who can't keep a man. The racist venom in his voice made Natasha's stomach turn. This was who Rhett really was when he thought no one important was listening. Tell her she can have her little moment, Rhett continued on the recording. But I've got lawyers, I've got connections, and I've got dirt on her that will make her wish she'd stayed quiet. She wants to play in the big leagues? I'll bury her so deep she'll never crawl out. The recording ended in silence. Natasha stared at the phone, feeling something shift inside her chest. Not anger this time, something colder, more focused. Pure determination. He just made a huge mistake, she said quietly. What do you mean? Harrison asked. He showed his true colors. All that charm, all that careful image management, it's gone. And he did it in front of a witness who was smart enough to record it. Natasha stood up, her earlier despair replaced by steel resolve. James, can you get that recording to the lawyers Harrison mentioned? Already done. I sent it to them while you were in the bathroom. And Charlotte is willing to testify? She said she'd do anything to help. Apparently, she never liked Rhett anyway. Thought he was controlling and condescending. Natasha walked to the window, looking down at the reporters still gathered below. Instead of feeling hunted, she now felt powerful. They wanted a story. She'd give them one they'd never forget. Harrison, she said, turning back to the room. Remember what you said about the foundation? About empowering women who've been silenced. Of course. What better way to launch it than with a case that shows exactly why it's needed? She could feel the plan forming in her mind, pieces clicking into place. We don't hide from this scandal, we use it. We turn it into the Foundation's first victory. You want to make yourself the poster child for the Foundation? James asked, clearly impressed by her boldness. I want to show other women that they don't have to accept being discarded and humiliated. That they don't have to suffer in silence or disappear quietly when powerful men try to rewrite their stories. Natasha's voice grew stronger with each word. Rhett wants to bury me? Let him try. But he's about to learn that he picked the wrong woman to underestimate. Harrison was staring at her with something that looked like awe. You're not just talking about fighting back. You're talking about turning this into a movement. Why not? How many other women are going through exactly what I'm going through right now? How many are being gaslit, financially abused, publicly humiliated by men who think they're untouchable? She pulled out her phone, opening her social media apps. It's time to find out. Over the next hour, Natasha crafted a series of posts that would change everything. Not defensive explanations or angry rants, but a clear, powerful statement of truth. She included the financial evidence James had found, screenshots of the deleted social media posts, and audio clips from Charlotte's recording. But most importantly, she shared her story. Not as a victim, but as a survivor who was refusing to be silenced. My name is Natasha Butler, she wrote. Today I discovered that my husband of 7 years has been living a double life, using our shared resources to court and marry another woman, while telling me he wasn't ready for marriage. When I confronted this betrayal publicly, his response was to hire expensive lawyers to destroy my reputation and threaten me with financial ruin. This is what happens when women dare to speak their truth. We're called crazy, vindictive gold diggers. We're told to handle things privately and with dignity, which really means silently and without consequences for the men who hurt us. I refuse. I refuse to be quiet, to be ashamed, or to disappear to make others comfortable. And I'm not alone. Starting tomorrow, The Sterling Foundation will be launching the Truth Tellers Initiative, providing legal support, financial resources, and platform amplification for women whose voices have been silenced by powerful men. If you have a story like mine, if you've been gaslit or financially abused or publicly humiliated by someone who thought they could control your narrative, we see you. We believe you. And we're here to help you fight back. My husband thought he could replace me quietly and move on with his life while I faded into the background. He was wrong. I'm Natasha Butler, and I'm just getting started. She posted it simultaneously across all platforms, then set her phone aside and waited. Within minutes, the responses started pouring in. Not just support from strangers, but stories. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. Women sharing their own experiences with financial abuse, public humiliation, betrayal by partners they'd trusted. Look at this, Harrison breathed, watching the notifications explode across her screen. Natasha, do you realize what you've just started? She smiled. The first genuine smile she'd worn since discovering Rhett's betrayal. I started a revolution. By morning, #TruthTellers was trending globally. Natasha's story had sparked something much bigger than personal revenge. It had become a rallying cry for women everywhere who'd been silenced, dismissed, or discredited by powerful men. The knock on the hotel suite door came at 8 a.m. sharp. Harrison opened it to find a team of lawyers from McKenzie, Walsh & Partners, led by Alexandra McKenzie herself, a formidable woman in her 50s known for taking down corrupt CEOs and winning impossible cases. Ms. Butler, Alexandra said, extending her hand. I've been following your story since last night. I have good news and better news. I'll take the good news first, Natasha said, still in her robe but feeling more awake than she had in years. Rhett's legal team called our office an hour ago. They want to settle. Quietly and quickly. Alexandra smiled sharply. Apparently, the social media response to your post has their clients reconsidering their strategy. And the better news? 3 of Rhett's business partners have reached out to us independently. Turns out, your husband's been playing fast and loose with more than just marriage vows. There are financial irregularities in his business dealings that could result in criminal charges. James looked up from his laptop. The story's been picked up by major news outlets. CNN, The Washington Post, Good Morning America, they all want interviews. And Natasha, you should see what's happening to Rhett's business. His website crashed from negative traffic, his Google reviews are tanking, and 2 major clients have already pulled their contracts. What kind of settlement are we talking about? Harrison asked. Alexandra consulted her notes. Full ownership of the real estate business, which we valued at approximately $2.3 million. All joint assets, including the apartment and investment accounts. And a public apology acknowledging that he committed fraud against you. What about Scarlett? Natasha asked. Ah, yes. The second Mrs. Butler. Alexandra's smile turned predatory. It appears she was not as innocent in all this as she initially claimed. We found evidence that she knew about you from the beginning. Text messages between her and Rhett discussing how to handle the divorce situation and minimize your claim on his assets. Natasha felt a cold satisfaction at this revelation. Scarlett hadn't been a naive victim after all. She'd been a willing participant in the deception. She's also facing potential charges for conspiracy to commit fraud, Alexandra continued. My guess is she'll be looking for her own lawyer very soon. Before Natasha could respond, her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she hadn't seen in months, her mother. Natasha, honey, her mother's voice was soft, contrite. I saw the news this morning. I saw what you wrote, and all those women responding with their stories. Mama, I owe you an apology. A big one. I was wrong to tell you to handle this quietly. I was wrong to be ashamed of you for fighting back. Her mother's voice cracked slightly. I spent 30 years letting your father's bad behavior slide, because I thought that's what good wives did. But watching you stand up for yourself, it made me realize I should have been braver. Tears pricked Natasha's eyes. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I'm proud of you, baby girl. I'm proud that you're stronger than I was. And I want you to know that whatever you need, support, testimony, anything, I'm here for you. After her mother hung up, Natasha found herself surrounded by the people who truly mattered. Harrison, who'd proven his commitment when things got difficult. James, who'd dropped everything to help her find the truth. Alexandra, who was fighting for justice on behalf of not just Natasha, but all the women who'd reached out. So what do you say? Alexandra asked. Do we take the settlement, or do we go to trial and make this an even bigger statement? Natasha looked around the room at the faces watching her, then at her phone where messages of support were still pouring in from women around the world. "We take the settlement," she said finally. "But not quietly. We announce it publicly, we use it to fund the Truth Tellers initiative, and we make sure every woman who's watching knows that she doesn't have to accept being treated like she's disposable." "And Rhett?" James asked. "Rhett gets to live with the consequences of his choices. His reputation is destroyed, his business is in ruins, and his new marriage is built on a foundation of lies and criminal conspiracy." Natasha shrugged. "I don't need to destroy him. He did that himself the moment he decided I wasn't worth his honesty." Harrison pulled her into his arms. "Have I mentioned lately that you're incredible? You can mention it again," she said, laughing for the first time in what felt like forever. At 2 p.m., they held a press conference in the hotel's main ballroom. The room was packed with reporters, cameras, and supporters who'd driven in from across the state after following the story online. Natasha stood at the podium, wearing a simple but elegant blue dress that made her look both professional and approachable. Behind her, a banner read Truth Tellers Initiative, empowering women to reclaim their narratives. "My name is Natasha Butler," she began, her voice clear and confident. "Yesterday, I discovered that my husband of 7 years had committed bigamy, financial fraud, and betrayal on a scale I never could have imagined. Today, I'm here to announce that justice has been served, not through revenge, but through truth." She outlined the settlement terms, the criminal charges being filed, and most importantly, the launch of the Truth Tellers Initiative with its first grant. The $2.3 million she'd won from Rhett's business. This foundation will provide legal support, financial resources, and platform amplification for women whose voices have been silenced by powerful men who think they can control the narrative. We will fund divorce proceedings, custody battles, and civil suits for women who can't afford to fight back on their own. The applause was thunderous. During the Q&A session that followed, a reporter asked about her relationship with Harrison and whether the foundation represented a conflict of interest. "Mr. Sterling and I are partners in every sense of the word," Natasha replied confidently. "He's pledged to match every dollar the foundation raises, and Sterling and Associates will be donating legal and marketing services pro bono for the next 5 years. This isn't about business, it's about building a world where women don't have to choose between speaking their truth and protecting their future." As the press conference ended, Natasha felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Elena, tears streaming down her face. "I am so proud of you," Elena whispered, pulling her into a fierce hug. "You turned the worst day of your life into a movement that's going to help thousands of women." "We're just getting started," Natasha replied. "This is only the beginning." Outside the hotel, protesters had gathered, not against Natasha, but in support of her. Women holding signs that read, "We believe truth tellers," and "No more silent suffering." The sight took her breath away. "Look what you started," Harrison said, sliding his arm around her waist as they watched from the window. "No," Natasha corrected, leaning into his warmth. "Look what we're going to finish." 1 year later, the Sterling Foundation headquarters buzzed with energy as Natasha walked through the modern offices that had become the nerve center of a movement. Framed newspaper articles lined the walls. Truth Tellers Initiative helps 10,000th woman. Sterling Foundation's legal victory changes precedent for financial abuse cases, and Natasha Butler named Time magazine's Person of the Year finalist. "Good morning, Ms. Butler," called Sarah Chun, the foundation's newest lawyer, a brilliant young attorney who'd left a prestigious firm to join their cause after her own experience with workplace harassment. "The McKinney case settled this morning. Full custody to the mother, plus damages." "That's wonderful news," Natasha said, feeling the familiar warmth that came with each victory, large or small. Her assistant intercepted her before she reached her office. "Your 10 a.m. interview with Forbes moved to 11, but you have a special visitor waiting in your office." Natasha opened her door to find her mother sitting in the chair across from her desk, beaming with pride. At 72, Dorothy Butler looked younger and more vibrant than she had in years. A transformation that had begun the day she'd finally filed for divorce from Natasha's father. "Mama, what are you doing here? Can a mother visit her daughter without an agenda?" Dorothy stood to embrace her. "Though I did have a reason. I wanted to give you this in person." She handed Natasha an envelope containing a check for $50,000. "Mama, what?" "The divorce settlement came through. Your father had more hidden assets than we thought." Dorothy's voice carried a satisfaction Natasha had never heard before. I want this to go to the Truth Tellers Initiative. Consider it an investment in making sure other women don't wait as long as I did to find their voices." Natasha hugged her mother tightly, marveling at how much they'd both grown over the past year. Dorothy had not only left her cheating husband, but had started a support group for older women going through late-life divorces. She'd become something of a local celebrity, featured in magazines as an example of how it's never too late to reclaim your power. "How's the book coming along?" Dorothy asked as they settled into the comfortable chairs by the window. "The editor says it'll be ready for publication next month." Natasha glanced at the manuscript pages scattered across her desk. Her memoir, tentatively titled Speaking Truth to Power: A Marriage, a Betrayal, and a Revolution. The advance alone had been enough to fund the foundation for another 2 years. "And Harrison? How are the wedding plans?" Natasha smiled, twisting the engagement ring that had finally found its permanent home on her finger. "He's downstairs actually, meeting with the architects about the new shelter." The Truth Tellers Initiative had grown beyond anyone's wildest expectations. What had started as legal and financial support for women had expanded into temporary housing, job placement services, and even a non-profit marketing agency that helped women start their own businesses. "And Rhett?" Dorothy asked carefully. It was the first time either of them had mentioned his name in months. "Last I heard, he was working as a junior sales associate for someone else's real estate firm in Phoenix. Scarlett left him about 6 months ago, apparently. Being married to someone with a destroyed reputation and criminal record wasn't as glamorous as she'd hoped." Natasha felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only a sense of closure. The man who'd tried to erase her from his story had ultimately erased himself from hers. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Harrison peeked his head in, his face lighting up when he saw both women. "Dorothy, I didn't know you were in town." "I wouldn't miss the anniversary celebration tonight," she said, standing to hug her future son-in-law. "How many women are we expecting?" "Over 3,000 confirmed," Harrison replied, his voice filled with amazement. "We've got delegations coming in from 12 countries. The President of Ireland is giving the keynote address via video link." The 1-year anniversary celebration of the Truth Tellers Initiative had grown from a small gathering into an international conference. Women who'd been helped by the foundation were flying in from across the globe to share their stories and connect with others who understood their journeys. Elena appeared in the doorway, her catering company's signature white uniform replaced by an elegant business suit. Her own journey over the past year had been remarkable. The publicity from Natasha's story had brought her catering business more high-profile clients than she could handle, leading to the launch of her own restaurant empire. "Are you 3 ready for tonight?" Elena asked. "Because the ballroom looks incredible, and I may have outdone myself with the menu." That evening, the grand ballroom of the city's most prestigious hotel was transformed into a celebration of female empowerment. The same venue where Natasha had once felt small and invisible during Rhett's business events now hosted the most important gathering of her life. As she walked to the podium to address the crowd, Natasha caught sight of familiar faces scattered throughout the audience. Charlotte Webb, now in her final year of nursing school thanks to a Truth Tellers educational grant. Alexandra Mackenzie, whose law firm had become the go-to practice for high-profile women's rights cases. James Franco, who'd become the Foundation's volunteer photographer, documenting stories of triumph and transformation. 1 year ago, Natasha began, her voice carrying easily across the packed ballroom, I thought my life was ending. I discovered that the man I'd loved and supported for 7 years had not only betrayed me, but had tried to erase me from his story entirely. I felt small, powerless, disposable. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. What I didn't realize is that I'd never been powerless. I'd simply forgotten my own strength. And when I remembered who I was, when I refused to be silenced, diminished, or written out of my own narrative, something magical happened. She gestured to the audience, filled with women of every age, race, and background. You happened. You reached out with your own stories, your own truths, your own refusal to be silenced. Together, we created something bigger than revenge, bigger than justice. We created a movement. The applause was thunderous, but Natasha wasn't finished. In the past year, the Truth Tellers Initiative has helped 15,000 women leave abusive relationships, provided legal representation for 8,000 custody and divorce cases, and given business grants to 5,000 female entrepreneurs. But more than that, We've changed the conversation about how women are allowed to respond to betrayal and abuse." She paused, thinking of all the messages she'd received from women around the world who'd found the courage to speak up after seeing her story. "We've shown that women don't have to suffer in silence to maintain dignity. We don't have to disappear quietly to keep the peace. We don't have to make ourselves smaller to make others comfortable." Her voice grew stronger with each sentence. "We have the right to take up space, to demand justice, and to refuse to be written out of our own stories." As she concluded her speech, the standing ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes. But what moved Natasha most wasn't the applause. It was seeing her mother in the front row, tears streaming down her face, finally understanding what it meant to be proud of fighting back instead of ashamed of it. Later, as the celebration wound down, Natasha found herself on the hotel's rooftop terrace with Harrison, looking out over the city lights. The same city where she'd once felt trapped in a marriage that was slowly suffocating her dreams. "Any regrets?" Harrison asked, sliding his arms around her from behind. "About what?" "About how it all happened. The public nature of it, the media circus, the way your private pain became a public movement." Natasha considered the question seriously. There had been difficult moments. The death threats from men who felt threatened by the Foundation's work, the constant media scrutiny, the pressure of being a symbol rather than just a person. "No regrets," she said finally. "If I hadn't been forced to find my voice in such a public way, thousands of other women might still be suffering in silence." Sometimes the most painful experiences lead to the most important work of our lives. Harrison turned her to face him, his eyes serious in the moonlight. "Natasha Butler Sterling has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" She laughed, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. "I like the sound of that, though I think I'll keep Butler for professional purposes. I've worked too hard to build that brand to give it up now." "Fair enough. As long as you promise to keep being the incredible woman I fell in love with." "I promise to keep growing into whoever I'm meant to become," she replied. "And I promise to never forget that my voice matters, my story matters, and my truth is worth fighting for." Below them, the city hummed with life and possibility. Somewhere out there, women were reading her book, visiting the Foundation's website, finding the courage to speak their own truths. The ripple effects of one woman's refusal to be silenced were still spreading, still growing, still changing lives. As they headed back inside, Natasha's phone buzzed with a notification from the Truth Tellers Initiative's social media account. A young woman in Mumbai had just shared her story of leaving an arranged marriage, crediting Natasha's example with giving her the courage to choose her own path. The revolution was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. And Natasha Butler, survivor, truth teller, and architect of change, had never felt more powerful in her life. And that's how one woman's worst day became thousands of women's turning point. What truth have you been afraid to tell? What story have you been afraid to own? Remember, your voice matters, and you are never as powerless as someone wants you to believe. If this story inspired you, please share it, subscribe to my channel, and let me know in the comments how you're planning to speak your own truth. Until next time, keep shining your light.